How's it going? Thanks for tuning in. If you are a landscaping business, it's probably the time of year where you are either maybe renewing your commercial insurance program or maybe you're a newer business looking to get started up. Every business is going to need some form of commercial insurance. So in this video, I kind of want to go over some of the basics around commercial insurance for landscaping businesses, go over some of the policies that most businesses will be looking into. So to start, every business, for the most part, is going to need what is called general liability insurance. This is really the foundation coverage that every business has. The main things that you want to think about this policy covering: bodily injury and property damage because of your business operations. So for a landscaping business, this might be if you are doing work at a customer site, whether that's commercial or residential, and maybe a third party, trips over a piece of equipment that you own. They get injured and they sue you. Or maybe you're doing work on a project and the easiest example for landscaping companies is maybe a rock gets caught in a mower, and that mower then shoots the rock into a window, causes property damage, whether it's at your customer site or maybe a neighboring property. These are situations where your general liability policy would step in to provide coverage for, again, if there's maybe any legal defense costs that come with these claims, or again, any sort of repair costs that come with the property, medical expenses, pain and suffering. This is where general liability insurance would come into play, again, for third-party claims. And then we go on to workers' comp. If you have employees in the state of Michigan, you are going to be required to carry workers' comp insurance. So very important that you are in compliance there. It's also just important for you as a business owner, as a business, to carry workers' comp. This is what protects your employees if they get injured on the job. So it covers things like medical expenses, lost wages, and rehab services. Those are the three main points. For this coverage, I always will recommend have $1 million limits. The other options are either $500,000 across the board or the state minimum coverage limits. But always, my opinion, I've been doing this for 5 years. I've worked with a lot of landscaping companies and a lot of other contracting and construction type of businesses in my career. Always choose $1 million limits because, one, you never know how bad a claim could be. And the cost difference to have $1 million limits versus $500,000 or even a lower limit is really minimal. So if it is something you're going through the renewal process and you don't have $1 million limits, definitely ask your agent or ask whoever might be looking into your business insurance program. Ask them to quote $1 million limits. That's just my advice. Take it or leave it. But for the cost, it is 100% worth it. The next coverage: commercial auto insurance. If you have any business vehicles that you are regularly using for work, whether they are titled to you individually or they are titled to the business, always have a commercial auto policy. Personal auto policies will have certain exclusions around commercial use. You can have a commercial policy even if your business, even if it is titled to you personally. If you are hauling trailers, you're hauling equipment, you're going to and from job sites, if you are using a vehicle for business, you need to have a commercial policy. The main coverage that is, if you have any sort of contracts that they're going to be checking for, is going to be commercial auto liability coverage. For the most part, the starting point is going to be $1 million. You can potentially look into higher limits if that is needed for any sort of contracts, but $1 million for this will be bodily injury and property damage. And also, I would match that for uninsured and underinsured motorists here in Michigan because we have a high rate of uninsured drivers. There are other coverages as well for your physical damage coverages, comprehensive collision. This protects your vehicles if you were ever to get in an accident or maybe a tree falls on them. And then always make sure that you have an accurate and up-to-date driver list. This is one of the most important aspects of your commercial auto policy. Definitely try to keep it as up-to-date as possible. I know it can be tough throughout the year with turnover and things like that, but definitely at the very least, make sure you're trying to review it on a regular basis. And then also a quick endorsement that you do want to make sure you have on the policies: hired and non-owned auto insurance. This covers any vehicles that your business does not own, whether it is employee-owned vehicles or any vehicles that your business might rent. So definitely make sure that you have that hired and non-owned auto endorsement as well. The next coverage that I want to go over is going to be inland marine insurance. So this would be for any equipment coverage. So if you own any skid steers, any pieces of larger equipment that have value, definitely make sure that they are scheduled out in this section of the policy. It'll be called inland marine insurance. You can also add maybe a blanket coverage amount for small tools, things like that. You can add an amount for rented equipment that your business might use throughout the year for a certain amount. And then if you have any scheduled equipment, you're going to need year, make, model, the serial number, and then the coverage amount that you need for that specific piece of equipment. This usually is not a super expensive coverage to have on, but obviously if you have a $50,000 piece of equipment or even something like $5,000, definitely make sure that you have this coverage in place, because again, for the cost, it's worth having if something were to ever happen to it. Also, something to note with this section, a lot of people will ask about trailers. Trailers will actually be covered on the commercial auto section, and you do want to make sure they are scheduled out there. Again, listed with the serial number or VIN number, whatever it is for that particular piece. And you want to make sure that they are scheduled out, because there's not automatic coverage for trailers. So definitely make sure that they're included in that portion of your commercial insurance program. And then the next and last main coverage, I'll call it, the main coverage of these 5 policies is going to be your umbrella insurance. So this is additional liability insurance that sits over your commercial auto, general liability, and your workers' comp insurance. A lot of times, if you are doing more commercial work, this is where that coverage would step in. This is where that coverage would be needed for certain contracts. Sorry, there's an annoying beep going, and I can't shut it off right now. But either way, we're going to finish the video. Commercial umbrella insurance is where if any claim goes over those primary policy limits, either your general liability, workers' comp, or commercial auto, there's a severe claim. This is where that coverage would step in, so that you aren't paying those expenses out of pocket, right? If there's a bad vehicle accident, right? Multiple cars are involved, and there's a claim that goes over that $1 million. This is where an umbrella insurance policy would step into play. And again, if you are doing more commercial work, a lot of times it's very common for umbrella coverage to be required. And then 2 optional coverages that I do want to mention. Three optional coverages that I do want to mention. One is going to be cyber coverage. Now, depending on the size of your business, you might not necessarily need a complete standalone cyber policy. You might not want to, even though the premium wouldn't be super expensive, you might not want it. But at the very least, add some form of cyber coverage to either your general liability policy or your business owner's policy, depending on the insurance company you're working with, is how you're going to be underwritten. But definitely make sure you have at least some form of cyber coverage, so that if ever there is an incident, a data breach, you can recoup some of those costs and expenses that come with that incident. You know, it can happen really to any type of business nowadays, no matter how big or small. So definitely worth having at least some form of coverage there. Second one is going to be employment practices liability insurance, sometimes referred to as EPLI. This would be for the 3 main things it's covering is harassment, discrimination, wrongful termination. In today's world, it's very litigious. You fire somebody, something happens in the office environment, this is where this policy would step in. A lot of times it can either be added onto general liability as an endorsement, or it will be on a standalone policy through what is called management liability. So again, definitely worth looking into some form of coverage in this area. You might not need a standalone policy depending on the size of your business, but again, worth looking into. And then the last one I'll mention, pollution liability. This can be something maybe you add on as an endorsement, or maybe that is included in a coverage package, or again, you might need a specific amount depending on if you are doing commercial work or work for certain organizations. So again, pollution liability is not going to be included in your general liability coverage, so sometimes you might need a separate policy. Overall, with this video, I hope that it was helpful and gave you a good base knowledge of what you should be looking into and could be looking for when it comes to your business insurance. I work with a lot of landscaping companies, a lot of contractors and construction folks in general. So if you do need help, feel free to reach out. And if you have any specific questions on anything I covered in this video or anything insurance related, whether it's personal or commercial, we do both of those. Feel free to reach out, leave a comment below, or reach out directly. All my contact info should be below. I would love to see if our team could help out. So thanks for watching.